Hello, my friends, and welcome to the last episode of the decade. I have this very deep, seductive voice for you, very intentionally. As we head into the new decade, my body is telling me it needs a little bit of a rest. So I am just super excited that we can get this last episode over to you before the new year. And if you're anything like me, before I hop into the episode, I have a couple things I want to share with you. So I have been scrambling the last week or so to get my last holiday gifts ready, get my New Year's plans in order, all of that fun stuff. And one of the things that I always find to be one of my favorite things to give people is the gift of experience. And one of the things I am putting out right now, if anybody knows any wonderful women that are looking for a women's leadership coach, I have created a gift card option. If you are hoping to give them a little bit of encouragement to step into their leadership potential and to work with someone like me, I'm offering a gift card. So there'll be a link in the show notes for how you can get to that gift card and purchase them a nice little women's leadership session with me. Also, along the lines of my women's leadership coaching, I am going to be launching a new program. It's a membership program. It's called Activate 2020, and it will be releasing early January. It will be a month-to-month program where you're able to sign up in the month of January to be part of this kind of beta pilot program. And what you will get is a discounted rate for coaching calls. So there will be more information about all of that in January, and there's going to be nice bullets, and there'll be places for you to ask questions if you have questions. But I did want to give a heads up there. I'm really, really excited about this. Makes coaching a little bit more accessible. Also, this particular community will have perks that others won't have. We'll have early access to things. We'll have a whole slew of amazing content coming their way. So if this sounds interesting to you, or you think somebody else might be interested in this, keep an eye out for Activate 2020. I will be putting it up on social media, and I will definitely be mentioning it in the first episode of 2020. The next piece that actually wonderfully flows into this, it's like I planned it, is that in 2020, I am going to be starting to do some solo-sodes or solo episodes. They're going to be short form episodes talking about various topics that come up, whether it be pop culture, issues that are coming up in the business world, in the corporate space, in the social justice arena, and just riffing a little bit on some thoughts. I have all these incredible thoughts that come up with all the work that I'm doing, and I'd love to be able to share them in a short form way with you, the amazing listeners of this podcast. So if there are specific things that you're struggling with or questions you have, definitely feel free to reach out to us on the nikkyinnocent.com/podcast page. There's a link on there called Join the Conversation. If you have questions, if you're coming up against issues, think of it like a Dear Abby section in the newspaper. I know that's going way back, but if you're finding yourself struggling and wishing that somebody would be able to kind of answer questions or give some advice, these solo episodes will likely have a little bit of an advice column spin to them as well. And then also something I'm super excited about is I have some incredible candidates for the right-hand woman role that I mentioned in the last episode. So I'm looking to be hiring an incredible right-hand woman who will be able to take the logistical strategy, operational strategy of the business to a whole nother level in the coming year. And I'm so excited. We have gone through the first round and have some really, really great candidates. And from that, we will have so much more programming coming out. And so my hope is early in Q1 to have some online programming to offer you as well. So many really exciting things about 2020. I am amped. And there's going to be so many more exciting things coming in the coming weeks of appearances that I'll have and some collaborations that I'm doing. And then finally, the last thing I just want to mention that I've had some really great outreach recently about is, I believe this is in the more standard intro that comes before I start talking in real time, but I do want to mention that I do have speaking opportunities. I do keynote speaking, I do workshops, I do small group kind of deep dives and boot camps as well around new paradigm leadership, women's leadership, creating an inclusive environment, intergenerational, multi-generational workplaces. And I do encourage you to check out my website for more information there. It's at nikkyinnocent.com/speaking. You can drop an interest form in there and the team will get in touch with you and we can figure out how we might be able to create wonderful in-person opportunities for learning and growth in the organizations, companies, and groups that you're a part of. And then the last thing I will ask as a little holiday gift for me, or maybe even a rounding up the decade gift for me, if you have not rated and reviewed this podcast, please do head on over to, if you listen to this on iTunes, head on over to Apple Podcasts or iTunes and rate us there. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to hear how that goes. And these ratings are really helpful for us to get more reach and to figure out the reviews specifically give us a sense of what you're really liking and you want to hear more of. If you want to give us some more private reviews and feedback, you can head on over again to that Join the Conversation link I mentioned earlier and drop your thoughts in there. So without further ado, let me tell you about the incredible guest we have for the last episode of the decade. My friends, I am so excited to introduce Kalilah Wright. She is an architect, a designer, a creative director, and the owner of Mess in a Bottle, a t-shirt company that is an emotional, thought-provoking expression of the current climate in the world around us. And just honestly, as I'm saying this, I can't help but say this out loud to you. It always brings a smile to my face to think about Kalilah and Mess in a Bottle. So Mess in a Bottle, if you've seen any of my first TED Talk, Embracing Your Other, or you've seen any of my social media feeds where you see these t-shirts where I have messages on them, all of them, I believe all of them, are from Kalilah's company, Mess in a Bottle. It's an incredible organization. In this episode, we talk about so many different things, but we really talk about Kalilah's entrepreneurial journey, the importance that she finds in creating wearable messages through her t-shirts. There are sweatshirts, there are bags, there are accessories, there are mugs. I've got a mug. And we talk about how her business grew, also how it became a bit of a viral sensation, and there's really impressive celebrities and people you might have heard of that we'll be talking about that have been organically getting to know her brand and really spreading the word. We talk about being a mom and a mompreneur and bringing your wonderful child into the mix as you're building a business and building a legacy. And also, we talk a bit about trauma. There's an experience in Kalilah's past that happened about, I think, a couple of years ago that was a really pivotal moment in her business and in, it sounds like it's the way she's talking about this, in her life and the way she views life and the way she views the signals that the universe gives you for the path to take next. So I don't want to give too much away. I feel like I already have. Without further ado, here is my wonderful conversation with Kalilah Wright. Welcome to Checkbox Other, Kalilah. I'm so happy you're here.
Thanks so much for having me.
Oh, I am. So for anybody that's seen me speak, they've seen me rock your shirts. And if you follow me on social media, you've probably dropped me a DM asking where to get the amazing shirts that I like to wear. And Kalilah is the amazing creator of all of the Mess in a Bottle tees that I rock. So the first thing I would love to start with is your journey. What got you to where you are now, the twists, the turns, the aha moments, the pivots, all those things. We'd love to hear a little bit more about your story.
Well, sure. There are definitely a lot of twists in terms of my story. So as you guys heard, my name is Kalilah Wright, and I'm the owner of Mess in a Bottle. So Mess in a Bottle, we're a t-shirt company, and we put messages on t-shirts, and they come packaged in a reusable bottle. I'm an architect and designer by trade. And I started the company in 2016, right after the Freddie Gray riots in Baltimore. I'm from Brooklyn, New York, but I moved to Baltimore, Maryland, around 2007. I moved to Baltimore, and the Freddie Gray riots, they happened in 2015. A young African-American male by the name of Freddie Gray, he died while he was in police custody, and this caused a lot of, riots and uproar in Baltimore. And ultimately, this led to a very uncomfortable kind of environment in the city. And because of this, I really wanted to start, a way of dialogue, a way for people to be able to speak to each other and really figure out, like, how can we have difficult conversations, no matter how hard they were. I wanted to give a voice to the voiceless and not have people's voice be stifled because they were afraid of the conversation. So that's how Mess in a Bottle was really birthed. It was birthed through a difficult time, but a time in which I think that I wanted to uplift others and encourage others to have conversation.
I love that so much. I feel like you came to me in such a wonderful time. Your work came to me, and then I started following you, and I was like, you are an incredible, incredible human being. So
Thank you.
what made you move from Brooklyn to Baltimore?
Well, I ended up going to graduate school in Baltimore. As I said, I have a master's degree in architecture, and I just really, I loved architecture, and I just knew I was going to become this licensed, registered architect.
Mm-hmm.
But, I guess the universe had other plans for me. And when I was here in Maryland, I ended up working for Under Armour, and I love being at like an apparel, athletic fashion brand. So being at Under Armour, I was able to really see like the development of apparel, see how things were put together, especially the branding, the story behind the brand. So all those things, I still felt like I needed to create my own. I felt like I needed to, it just didn't feel like working at my desk and being in this cubicle, like I just didn't feel as accomplished as I knew I could be. So Mess in a Bottle was just really birthed by one day I was sitting at my desk and I was listening to YouTube, and there was a Chance the Rapper album on, and the album was called Surf. And while I was listening to the album, I looked down at the screen and it was a message in a bottle. And at the time I had started creating messages. And that's how this whole thing came about, where I said, okay, this is it. This is a message in a bottle. And, of course, the term is pretty popular. So message in a bottle was taken. So I said, well, you know what? The world is a mess right now. Things are a mess. And I was like, so you know what? It's not a message in a bottle. It's a mess in a bottle. And that is really how, things came about. And, so me coming to Maryland was for my architecture career. But I currently reside here, and, it's become home.
Yes, I love that. So, I found myself, because how many times do people say, oh, I'm such a mess, or I'm a hot mess? And I feel like that word in itself, taking it from message to mess, is like, yes, I feel both sides of that. I have so much to say, but also I haven't figured it all out yet, but I still have stuff to say. So I love that so much. So obviously, the title of this podcast is Checkbox Other, and one of my favorite questions to ask is for guests to share a time or two where they have felt quote unquote other in their life, or they felt like they haven't belonged.
I would say with architecture is a time. I went to Penn State University for my undergraduate degree, and I am a Black woman, and being at Penn State University, I come from Brooklyn, where Brooklyn is very diverse. Everyone is a big melting pot. And when I went to Penn State, I definitely felt different. Like I didn't, and I had professors say that they didn't see me as an architect. And so for me, I definitely felt like I didn't know if I belonged. And one of my professors recently, Professor William Chan at Morgan State University, he recently transitioned and passed on. And I went to his funeral this weekend, and what it reminded me, he reminded me that I wasn't other. I felt like I was in a place where I didn't know where I belonged, and he reassured me that being different was okay, that I didn't have to stay in the box, that even though, maybe I didn't fit the typical mold of being an architect, or what an architect, I guess, looks like for society, that whatever designer, creator, creative that I knew I could be, I could. So I definitely think that puts me in a place of feeling like I was, in a place of not belonging.
It's, it's so powerful to have a person or a time in your life that can be such a concrete example of when that flipped, that feeling of not belonging, and somebody actually validating, yeah, you are different, but that is okay. And that's where the magic happens. So that's
Right.
incredible to hear that. So, one of the questions I always have as somebody that is so, because this is such a fan of the work that you're putting out in the world, is, I find myself many times laughing in a wonderful way with the messages you put on social media or on your on the apparel that you put out. So t-shirts, yes, but there's so much more that you produce. When do you kind of determine what messages make it to apparel versus what makes it on social media? Because I will tell you, there are so many times where I feel completely alone or completely like, what the heck is going on in this world? And I open my phone and there's a wonderful comment from you that makes me cackle, like die laughing. And so how do you go through that process?
Yeah, I'm happy to hear that. I mean, that's what we are. I want to relate to everyone and anyone. Like, we're a brand of messages, and we want the messages to connect with people. And I think that what we do is we don't stay away from anything that's either too difficult. And I try to find a very witty and creative way to say something without saying anything at all.
Yes.
So we don't, I'm not always, I don't try to push the envelope in like a negative, offensive, insensitive way. I just try to make very light out of like really heavy situations, and in a good way to like make you think about it. Like,
yes.
That's what Messing About truly is. Like, we want to start the conversations no matter how difficult they are, no matter how, jarring this thing is. We want to start the conversation.
Yes, I truly, I feel like you have done such a wonderful job. So yes, through social media and my moments where I'm alone, but also, especially with what you're putting on your apparel and the ones that have spoken to me that I have ordered and put on my body as quickly as possible to go do a speaking gig, is not only is it such an important thing in those moments of alone, but also it allows people to come to me with conversation that I didn't even know meant what it meant to them when they read the shirt that I was wearing. And so I know one of the things you talk about is this clothing giving people a voice when they don't feel like they have one, or giving a voice to this conversation that goes unspoken so often. So I'd love to hear a little bit about, how that's played out, where your mentality on that has come, and if there's a story in your life, I'm sure there is many more than one story in your life where this has shown itself to be true just from the powerful message that people get to wear on their shirts.
I think even a message, we have a t-shirt that says, a Black woman created this. I do get a lot of, people who are maybe not Black or not a woman, and they say, is it okay if I wear this? And I'm like, of course it is. Like, the reason that we have the shirt is we want you to be excited that, a Black woman was the creator of this shirt, and that you are supporting a Black business and a Black women-owned business at that. So I think that, we live in a time now where there is a lot of insensitivity to a lot of things. And we want to create a way where we can have, healthy conversations without it being this thing where people are offended or, and I think that right now we are not going towards things with compassion. A lot of people are just saying whatever they want without taking the time to, to be sensitive. And so this is what, that is what Messing About is really about. Like, we want to attack these issues, but come to it with compassion. And I think it's been really interesting, like you said, to hear some of the people and see what, how they've received the message, because how you may have intended it may not even be how someone else is now receiving it. So it serves as even an education part for you and them. And it's been amazing because this has not been, truly, I didn't know that this was what I was going to even get out of the company as well. So I think that it's been even more, remarkable to know that I created something with just such pure, just honesty and not sure where it would go. And then to have like these great things come of it, I think has been really, it's been interesting and it's been fun to watch.
Yeah. And, the architect in you, I feel like there's so much that you created in just creating kind of the foundation and the plans and bringing that to life that had so much more beauty than just what was on that page. And I think that that's there's so much of, my grandfather was an architect, and I've always been blown away by how kind of analytical and literal a lot of things could be in architecture. But then when you actually are living and breathing the experience of what the end product looks like, it's so much more than kind of the measurements and the angles. It's the experience that you're having in that space, in that moment, that really is transformative. That's more than just kind of the very, very tangible process that many people think when they're bringing in an architect for some sort of project or for their house. They think of it as very kind of concrete steps and stages, but there's such a beautiful art and experiential part to the whole experience too.
I definitely agree. Yep. And I think that my architecture career has been, just really poking in various ways that I had no idea it would. And it's been really, I'm like, oh, this is where that architecture is, actually coming into play. So that too has been very inspirational for me, because, I didn't know that's how that this stuff would play out, but that's life, and that's how it,
Yes.
That's what we're having.
Hey, you welcome the space and watch what happens, right?
Yes, and it's been beautiful.
Oh, that's so great. So one of the things that I absolutely love, so my background is in marketing, and one of the things that you have created is this amazing t-shirt vending machine as a vehicle to spread the message, a message in a bottle, in live experiences, and really allowing people to have kind of a playful dynamic with your products and putting them out in the world. So I'd love to hear a little bit about the vending machine, and then also on top of that, how the vending machine works so wonderfully are these amazing bottles that you deliver your products in. So I'd love to hear about kind of how the bottle came about fully, and how, I know that I've seen the progression of the bottle over the years and the beautiful different colors, which makes me excited because I've got a couple different colors. And then how the vending machine is now this wonderful iteration, and how you've been able to use that in different spaces.
Yeah, what happened was that when I created the t-shirt company, I wasn't sure where it would go, what we would do with it. And I ended up knowing that I wanted to put the t-shirt in a bottle. So, we first started by having bottles from IKEA that had just a really big mouth, and then we would put the t-shirts in there. But quickly, as these glass bottles from IKEA would get sold out, or stuff would happen, I quickly realized I'm like, I really think that I need to have, I was like, I really think that I need to have plastic bottles, and ones that we would, manufacture and create on our own.
Yes.
And so that is what we ended up doing, was we ended up having these plastic bottles that we have manufactured with our branding on it. And then, I knew, and this was funny because everybody's like, wow, the vending machine is so innovative. The vending machine really came, I don't want to say after the bottles, but it came really simultaneously. I had the vision of having the vending machine and being able to have a machine in hospitals and airports, and, just in different spaces. And so it just came together. And so for me to really conceptualize this bottle, the machine, and then to create it, and I've purchased 2 machines so far. So I think both of those things have been really, just great to see how it's come along.
Yes. And going from kind of that spark and idea to the execution. And, it's so funny. There's a part of me. So again, in my previous life as a marketer, used to do a lot of drop shipments and doing a lot of fulfillment. And the thought of, right as you said, IKEA bottles and glass, I was like, oh my goodness, it reminded me of mugs, which I've ordered some mugs from you too. And those can be such a difficult thing to actually bring to another person without breaking. So I think even just in the functionality of it all is such a wonderful idea. And I know personally, I love walking around with my mess bottle. I've got a white one and a purple one, and I take them on the plane with me every time I can, and it sparks conversations, which is really great because especially on the top of the bottle, it's, it says, what's your message? People are always like, what is that? I'm like, oh, let me tell you a little bit about this company. So, so it's pretty great.
That means that I'm doing my job.
Yes, you are tenfold. So, I also love, I saw your amazing use of the vending machine at a recent movie premiere. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So we were commissioned by Warner Brothers to have our vending machines at 5 different locations during the premiere of a movie called The Kitchen, starring Melissa McCarthy, Elizabeth Moss, and Tiffany Haddish.
Yes.
And it was really cool. We created a message for the movie, and it was co-branded, and we pretty much had these messages in the vending machine for people to get swag after the movie. So it was a really great concept, and I'm just happy how people walked away from the movie where we had our signature message, Queen, don't be afraid to rule like a king, and I want it all. Those were what we had on, and people really loved it.
This question is calling me right now of just the incredible ability you've had to build community and to amplify the messages that you're putting out in the world, but also the amazing work that the people that are wearing your apparel are putting out in the world at the same time. Can you tell me a little bit about how there's such a crowdsourced effect to the power within your company and how well you connect, which feels very kind of intimate with your customers in that process?
It does. I think that, what I remind people all the time is that I am, I use Cardi B's term, regular degular. Like, I'm a regular degular girl from Brooklyn, New York. And I think I am relatable. Like, this was an idea that was really birthed, from my kitchen table and sense. So I think reminding the public of that and then sharing these messages, I create messages for myself. So the fact that it relates to everyone in the way that it does, to me, is just funny and it's interesting and it's cool. So, having these everyday messages that everyone's going through, we live in a day and age now where social media, sometimes you think everyone's doing so great. And, I'm here to remind people with the messages no, you're pretty regular. I'm down in the dumps too. Things are happening on my side as well, no matter how successful you may be or how much money you may have or may not have. We all have a little bit of that relatable, message.
Yes. Yeah. It reminds me, we had a guest on the podcast. Her name is Janine Quo, and she has a greeting card company called Quotations. And in the same way you just said, she creates these messages to put out in the world that are for her and something she needs in the moment. It sounds so similar that I needed that message. I needed that kind of soothing, or I needed that expression in the time. And there was so much power in knowing that message that I needed connected me to so many other people in that process. It's a beautiful thing that something so, again, like we were talking about before, one message can mean so many things to so many people, but there is this kind of common, it's like truth chills that I get through my body when something is really true. And I feel like, I love the Queen, don't be afraid to rule like a king. I wear that all the time. And then there's the one as strong as the woman standing next to me that is just, there is something so powerful about these messages that even if you go and look in your closet and you look at it, you have that experience, you're like, yes, okay, thank you. It's like having somebody beside you through this process of life when you feel like either you feel like you're down or you feel really excited about something at the same time. There's a lot of this, even though I'm not there with you in present, I am part of this with you. We are all part of kind of this human fabric together.
Yeah, like you said, it developed a community. It really created a place, a space where people can feel like they're not alone. And I think right now, people are alone, like people feel by themselves. But I want you to be able to walk down the street and stand in solidarity with someone, or be able to do a little head nod if someone's wearing, a shirt that you can really relate to. So that is, some of the reasons that I created these messages.
That's great. So, I've noticed you have, your son is a big part of this process. that he's been part of. He's been part of so many. I forget what you called it. He's like number one employee is what comes to my mind, but he has been there through so much of this. And I'd love to hear a little bit more about how important that's been in the process, both in parenting him, but also, I mean, I'm sure he's got a lot to do with making the magic happen too.
He does. I told him he has a job. So the days that he visits the shop, he's definitely the person that's like doing the mail. He helps me to put all the mail into the, our large bin that goes to the post office. My son, he is definitely the CEO of the company. I'm trying to remind him of that. And it's so funny because when he's being lazy and doesn't want to work, he's like, I don't want to own this. And I'm like, well, you have to. It's already yours. You got to figure this out. So I think that, on some days, I feel a little bit, maybe sad, like when we would be at the shop for really late hours or if he's not outside playing, but he's inside, watching me work. It would make me a little bit, like disappointed. But now that he's getting older, my son is 6 now, I think he's really starting to understand entrepreneurship. And I think that I'm getting comfortable with really understanding that I might be giving my son like something different, so he may not, we may not be able to play Frisbee and play, dodgeball or something, but at least now he is learning like, how to create a website and what that looks like. And, maybe a little bit of photography when I'm taking pictures of products. So I think that it's accepting like my role as a mom, as a mompreneur, and just, and knowing that it's okay that he may not be doing the typical things that maybe all his friends are doing as well.
And it's so cool. I mean, I can't even imagine being around a 6-year-old that's like, oh, I know how to build a website. Like, what? I know many people that are 5 to 10 times your age that are like, website, I don't want to touch it. I don't want to be anywhere near that. So you're like, there's this level of learning and exposure, and there's fun involved in the creativity aspect of everything that you're making happen too, that it really is kind of stretching your mind and stretching what's possible out there. That's truly incredible.
Yeah.
So I was trying to figure out exactly how I was introduced to you, and I feel like it might have been Bozma St. John's post. If it wasn't that, it was right around that time. I feel like there was so much. I feel like you and your information and your message were like, the universe was like, Nikki, you need this in your life. Your magic was everywhere. And so I remember seeing the post that she had done about the robbery that was at your first studio, and how that shifted your business in ways that I'm sure at the time obviously weren't something that you knew was going to happen, or how that would kind of play itself out. And I know you've talked at times about how kind of the darker or more difficult times where there have been times where you're looking for your purpose, or thoughts of suicide have really been something that can help move you to a place of really finding that purpose in a place you didn't necessarily know where you were gonna look. So I'd love to hear a little bit about how that process of, kind of this feeling of like rising from difficulty has just been such an incredible process, but also, like you mentioned, not acting like everything's shiny and perfect and sunshine and rainbows in this process. There's ups and downs throughout the whole thing.
Yeah, you know what? I probably have just gotten comfortable now with like talking about like the robbery and how that affected me. It was definitely a difficult time. But what I realized is that the robbery is what a stroke or what illness or what, maybe death in someone's family can be to a person. All these things happen involuntarily, and it can be a really like a stopping block a stumbling block in your business. But it's really about how you decide to like bounce back from it. What you decide, how long do know that through these things, like you can, if you one of the things that was almost said to me is, if you decided to stay down and decided that you wanted to close your business, go back to architecture, whatever you wanted to do, like you have all rights to. And so, I think that it shows like how you deal with things and how you bounce back and what you decide to do with the hurt and the pain and the trauma. And that's what I've decided. Like I decided that it was something that I wanted to like go through, heal from, and, allow it to help push me forward.
Yeah, I think it's just such a beautiful thing, in the same way that you were talking about the messages on your shirt connecting with people, that you're even just being willing and courageous enough to share what has been a traumatic experience with the world, and saying, yes, this happened. Yes, I'm working through it. It's not all perfect. It's not all healed necessarily, but I'm willing to share this with the world, because you can be this human being that goes through all these things in life and still be all these other things that haven't necessarily always been in the storyline together. And having that pivotal shifting moment in your life, or multiple, you never really know where the road is going to lead, where it gives you opportunities in moments where you don't necessarily think, oh, this is an opportunity. It's really, I feel like there's so much generosity in your willingness to share, and to continually be able to kind of give back in that process of saying, what I've done, here's all that I've been through to create this business. And now I'm willing to share with you, but also I'm willing to create avenues for other people to lift themselves up through entrepreneurship. So I'd love to hear a little bit from you about the process of, I know you offer an academy where people can come and kind of learn about starting their own t-shirt business. I know that you're out there having incredible conversations with people in your community, in panel discussions and all these things, just kind of spreading the word about the fact that, like, believe in yourself and your purpose is there. How has that, how did kind of the academy come about? And then two, how has that played out for you in being able to share this message live and in person with people?
I think, as you said on the call, like, you were really excited to, like, speak with me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people have become really invested in me and who I am. And I think that the great part is, I've made a lot of mistakes starting out this company. I'm still growing. We're going into our 4th year of business, but I'm definitely still learning. I'm still growing. I wanted to be able to give, if there is a single mom or single dad out there that, is trying to figure out how to make ends meet, and feel backed into a corner, and that they're working really hard at their 9 to 5. I really wanted to try to create a way for them to be able to create residual income, or, create a business for their child or for themselves to make money. And, and I thought that I am a very, I guess, giving person, like giving back to my community. So I really felt like, this was my way of being able to give back.
That's great. So in this process of giving back and of sharing your story, there has been an incredible amount of highly influential people that have found you, have purchased your products and wearing them proudly. How has kind of this spotlight, which is, it's been a little while now since well, at least for me, I get so excited every time I see someone wearing your stuff. I'm like, yes, she found it. Yes. So how has it shifted as you have kind of more people that are out there as brand ambassadors, whether it's, intentionally a brand ambassador, or they're just loving what you're doing and so excited to show it with the world. How has that kind of shifted the process, both as, a business, but then also in how you've thought about kind of expanding your business?
I think that it's been a really great experience where people have organically supported Mess in a Bottle. Like, this wasn't something where, like one person caught on and then the other. And, as you said, it's really cool to share the history of it having this cool bottle and the history of the company. So I think that that's been one of the really great gifts, is the fact that organically it has caught on, and that people want to support, people want to spread the message, people want to wear the messages. And that's been also a lesson that I'm learning about, like, people will buy things that they truly support and love. Mm-hmm. And that's really what has been happening with Mess in a Bottle.
And who have been kind of the high profile people that have been rocking your gear? I know Bozma. I know, yeah. Who else?
So we have Bazoma, you have Lovey, you have Lena Ways of Dear White People. Yes. She's also coming out with Queen and Slim this year.
I can't wait.
Yeah, we have Yvonne Orgy of Insecure. There's a bunch of people, and Serena Williams, of course,
Yes.
purchased the Army Queen jacket. So there are a lot of people who are huge supporters and fans of Mess in a Bottle.
Yes. So the one last thing, I mentioned this earlier, but I'd love to hear from you about how I feel like there are some messages that you pulled together that are in reaction to what's happening in the world. So yes, there are kind of the messages that are more universal, but I remember, you've done some around kind of political things that are happening politically, things that are happening socially. Obviously, you mentioned in the Freddie Gray uproar, that's kind of where the business was birthed. But how has the reaction to kind of societal conversation on a larger scale that's kind of very specific, how has that played itself out?
I think that at first some of the messages can be a bit jarring, but once they hear about what the company's about and start in conversations, I think people are more receptive to it and want to have conversation around it. So we do touch on some political messages. We do try a little bit to not, we try not to sway you in any direction.
Yeah.
We're not trying to say like, we're Democrat or Republican.
Right.
But this is more again to start the conversation. So I think that though sometimes it can be difficult conversations, I think people are appreciative of it.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. So I will be sharing all of this in all of the show notes, all of your links and all of that. But anything that you want our listeners to know more about Mess in a Bottle, know more about stuff that you're bringing to this world, anything you want to share that we can amplify here.
I think I'm excited to do more tea classes in 2020, as well as we're hoping to roll out the vending machine and do some wholesale in a lot of like local places.
Nice.
So, we're excited to really expand in 2020 and get our message out.
Nice. Oh, I'm excited. And just really quickly, so the tea classes, what goes into those? If anybody's thinking about creating a company of their own, it's an online program, it's an in-person program. How does it work?
We have both, but the online program. So if you go to www.theteaclass.com, you'll be able to find both information about the in-person class as well as doing a full online tea class as well.
Amazing. Any chance you'll come up to Boston? I was like, can we host one?
No, I think that we are actually coming to Boston in March of 2020.
Nice.
So definitely let's try to connect and let's try to figure it out.
Yes, that would be incredible. Well, I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time today, for connecting live. This feels like it was meant to be a long time coming. So I truly appreciate it.
I agree. Anytime. Thanks so much for the support. I genuinely appreciate it as well.
Oh, of course, of course. And everybody, if you haven't gone to see this incredible lineup of t-shirts and apparel and mugs and bags. Oh, I love that bag. The links will all be in the show notes, but it's messinabottle.com. And I want to hear which messages resonate with you. Buy them for gifts for people. My goodness, it's a wonderful gift to really lighten someone's day. And I know I've done it for my sister. She is so excited about everything. Anytime I show up, I'm like, here you go. She's like, I've been looking at this online. So truly, thank you. Thank you again for your time today.
Thank you so much.
How many shirts are you about to go buy right now? She is so wonderful. I'm not even kidding. Once you get to that website and you take a look, you're just going to want to buy everything in sight. The show notes will have all of my favorite teas, especially with pictures of me in them, with all the celebs that we mentioned wearing the wonderful products from Mess in a Bottle, all of the stories we talked about. There's so many things for you to check out on the show notes page. So again, NikkiInnocent.com/podcast. You'll see Kalilah's picture. You click on through to there and you'll get access to all the things we talked about. Now, again, my friends, I am just so grateful for your time. I'm kind of getting a little emotional. Have a wonderful, wonderful last 2 weeks of the year and happy, happy, happy New Year. I'll catch you in 2020. See you later.